Hi, Recaps Now here. Today we will learn about the story of the movie Kong. Watch out and take care. In the opening scene we see a picturesque island. It was during World War II. We see that two aircrafts are crashed and end up on the island. We then see two soldiers or fighter pilots coming out. We then see a fight takes place between them. In between all this, they move towards the forest. During this fight, when one of the fighters is about to kill the other, a giant-like creature whose name was Kong appears there. We see that when the fighters see the creature they feel frightened. Here the scene shifts. We are then shown events from years past. Here we meet a team consisting of two geologists, one of them being Bill and the other being his companion. We see that after extensive research, Bill had finally found an island. Now his only constraint were the finances needed for the mission, and for this reason they had been to the set. The island in question was none other than the one we see in the introductory scene. Bill said that if his research was on point, then it can be considered as one of the oldest islands, and it was home to several types of ancient or prehistoric creatures. But the world hardly had any idea about it, and so they should invest in this project. But the senator wasn't having any of it. Thus he refuses to allocate funds. But Bill doesn't give up and argues that the entire globe was in search of the island, including the mighty Russia, who'd even wanted to claim it. He says so he feels they must move forward with the project. After hearing this, the senator permits them to visit the island and gives them the financial backing. Now, as it was a big project, he couldn't manage it alone. So he builds a team and leads it as it's in charge. Along with him, he takes a band of soldiers and army officials, including high-ranked officials such as the major. He had also hired a captain for the voyage whose name was James. The team also had a female photographer named Mason who was assigned to take photos. After this, we see a meeting being held among the group members in which they decide to meet up at a certain location if they got lost. The next day we see that the group sailing to the sea from where they had to catch a flight. But on reaching the sea they find out that the route they wanted to follow wasn't safe at that point of time, as there was a terrible storm going on in that region. But Bill was adamant and doesn't pay any heed to the perceived hazards and threats. Rather, we see him venture into the journey with an army unit and half a dozen choppers. We then see that the weather gets even worse during the flight, and there was 0% chance of any of them surviving a crash. But somehow they managed to survive and reach the island. One of the geologists suggests that some of the giant creatures might be buried underground. So they dig grounds via an underground blast. This creates a chaos in the island. Many of the animals are seen running for their life and objects strike the chopper. Just then, a giant-like creature named Kong is shown. Being furious at something, he attacks them. The major then orders his men to take aim and fire at the ape. On hearing the sounds of bullets, Kong becomes extremely angry. Thus he attacks them, and as a result a number of soldiers are killed. Now, in order to minimize the damage, they form two separate groups. One composed of Bill and a group of armies, and the other was of James, Mason, and the rest. We then see the major points a gun at Bill, as he had lost a large chunk of his team, and inquires why he had brought them on that island. Bill replies that this world was never ours. It was home to animals, including ones that we don't even have a clue about. He further elaborates that once he was sailing a boat in the sea, when a giant of a creature attacked us, and all of the passengers on board perished except him. But nobody believed him when he returned and narrated the story. It is from that point onwards that he decided to research on such topics, and that he had come there after a research of 30 long years, just to expose the fact to the world that such creatures do exist. He mentions that soon those creatures would overthrow the human race, so they should find these creatures and control them. The scene then shifts to when one of the soldiers were missing, and the major and his men went into the woods in search of him. But while on this walking trail, a bamboo gets stuck to a soldier and he dies. When team looks upward, they find that the deadly spider had woven its web around the bamboo. It also ends up attacking the rest of the members until the major shoots it. The jungle was full of unusual creatures. On the other side, a missing soldier is shown to us. This was the same guy that went missing. He was standing near a river stream, where he encounters Kong. He notices that an octopus has attacked Kong. But Kong slays it and frees himself and eats up the octopus. The soldier was standing numb at such a scene. The scene shifts and we see James and his group are shown to be moving to a place. Just then they encounter a huge creature, which was actually a buffalo. The group observes if the buffalo says anything to them before firing. But the buffalo leaves in silence. Now they move further and find some wild people who were the natives of the island. Among the native group was an elderly man who could speak in English. He was actually one of the two soldiers that we saw in the introductory scene. He leads them to the tribe and narrates how the two of them were stuck in that island eons ago. He also informs that after their capture they were living in that island until a few years ago his friend died due to the attack by a creature called Skull Crawler. It was an underground animal and a big enemy of Kong. But now we're active again thanks to the explosion carried out by the research team. He informs them how Kong was their protector, and it would be a disaster if this animal attacked Kong. James's team had limited time to reach that location. So it happens that the old soldier suggests that it was futile to go barefoot and hands a boat over to them. And they begin the repairs to the boat when Mason notices a helicopter had fallen on a buffalo. She tries to get rid of the helicopter, but is unsuccessful. Just then, Kong arrives on the scene to save the day. Mason is scared to see Kong. Then she feels how can one be cruel to anybody who has a soft place for animals. The scene shifts again and we see the missing soldier again. He is shown sitting on something which we later find was a huge creature. When the creature stands, he begins to shoot but to no avail. We are shown the creature leaving that place out of fear, and this was the fear of the Skull Crawler. The Skull Crawler then advances and kills the soldier. Then scene shifts again and we see both the teams under army supervision were ready to proceed further. They bid farewell to the tribe and were excited to leave the island. Meanwhile, a strange carnivore bird comes and takes one of the men along with it. James fires at them, but the birds kill the man within a blink of an eye. The rest of the group are powerless and leave for the boat. Then we are shown that James's team and the Major's team meet at a place. Now we see the Major worries about his missing soldier who was his dark horse. He mentions that they must head west in order to track him. But the elderly soldier says it was risky to go that way. But the Major doesn't listen to any of it and orders James to accompany him. Now they had reached a place that was filled with skeletons and fossils. We see how one of the men smokes a cigarette and throws it, which causes a deadly explosion. As a result, we see the Skull Crawler regenerates themselves while the group of soldiers shoot at them. During this fight, we see a skull fall from a creature's mouth that contained the locket of the missing soldier. James understood what had happened, but they couldn't escape now as they were surrounded by a group of Skull Crawlers. And now we see that a greenish gas had also spread all around, making it difficult for them to survive and kill the creatures. But somehow they kill the monsters via their fire guns. Now we see James informs the Major that his soldier was dead and shows the locket. Hearing this, the Major loses his cool and says that he will kill Kong. Others, however, inform him that Kong was innocent and rather their protector than being a predator. They also reveal that the Skull Crawlers were the prime threat to them. But Major doesn't relent, and here we see James intervenes and advises the Major to proceed to that place while James and his team wait by the boat. Thus they head in separate directions again. Now we are shown that James and Mason are sitting at the mountain peak, and they are met with by Kong standing there. Mason gives him her hand fearfully and starts loving him, and it doesn't harm them. Mason feels that Kong is a friendly creature. Now we see that Major and his team have planted bombs near the stream. Just the bombs explode, Kong comes there and attacks the soldiers, because they were harming Mother Nature. But the explosion was such that he loses his senses. Here we see the Major orders to continue the explosions, but James comes there and explains everything to him, and says we are all alive because of Kong. But the Major argues that it should be us humans who should be in dominance of this earth and not these creatures. Then we see that when the Major is about to give in to James' pleas, just then the Skull Crawler arrives and attacks them. We then see Kong come to rescue his new friends, while the Major orders for explosions, but Kong moves to the skull crawler and kills it, while others leave for the boat. Here it must be told that the fight between Kong and skull crawler lasted till dawn. We see soldiers firing at skull crawler, who lets go Kong, and was now coming for the soldiers. We then see Kong fall into the water stuck in the chains. We also see a soldier ties bombs to his body and offers himself to the skull crawler in order to kill it via the bomb. But the creature is shown to be sharp and doesn't give in, rather pushes him so badly that the bombs explodes and he falls, thus dying. Now it advanced towards the others to kill him, but Kong drags him away. Then we see Mason firing from a mountain cliff in order to let the helicopters know their whereabouts, but she falls down the stream. Now we see Kong, who was fighting against the skull crawler, whom he finally overpowers. Kong then rescues Mason and leaves her to the humans. Now we see them all united and sailing together to their homeland. Then we see that the company that wanted to control the new creatures hires James and Mason. Then we see a glimpse of the other missing soldier from 30 years ago, who had returned and was seen meeting his wife and children, and he is elated to see them. This is how the movie ends.